Imagine a waterfall shaped like a horseshoe, not a thin ribbon of water, but a broad, crashing curtain nearly 300 meters wide at its fullest, tumbling over a red sandstone ledge in the middle of dense Bastar forest. In the monsoon, it swells to a kilometer across. The sound arrives before the sight. The mist hangs in the canopy. And this place, called Chitrakote, often called the Niagara of India, barely appears on the tourist maps of most Indians. Now picture a tribal market in that same Bastar region, a weekly haat where the Gond and Muria and Halba communities bring forest produce, handmade crafts, and intrinsic knowledge of plants and soils that no university has ever systematically studied. The women, in their traditional finery, the sounds of barter, the smell of mahua, ancient and entirely alive. And now picture Bhilai, one of the great steel cities of modern India. Its massive plant sending plumes into the flat sky of the Chhattisgarh plains. Steel that built the bridges and railway lines of a developing nation. A city that didn't exist before 1955. A city where Soviet engineers and Indian workers built something together that still stands. This is Chhattisgarh. Forests, tribal life, ancient temples, and industrial steel. All in one state. And it was born only in the year 2000. Namaste and welcome back to Around India in half an hour. I'm Ray and this is episode 5. From the dawn-lit mountains of Arunachal to the Brahmaputra of Assam, from the cradle of civilization in Bihar, we now come to the geographical heart of India, a state that sits at the center of the subcontinent, rich in forest, mineral, and culture, and yet almost entirely absent from the average Indian's mental map of places worth knowing. Chhattisgarh. The name means the land of 36 forts. Chhattis meaning 36, Garh meaning fort, derived from the 36 feudal territories that once composed the region under the Kalachuri. It is India's 10th largest state by area, home to over 30 million people, and the state with the third largest forest cover in the country. It is where India's mother, Kausalya, the mother of Lord Rama, is said to have been born, and where the Dandakaranya, forest of the Ramayana, stretched. Its ancient name is Dakshina Kosala, South Kosala, and it was born only 25 years ago, carved out of the southern districts of Madhya Pradesh in November 2000. A state so new its identity is still being written, even as its history goes back thousands of years. Chhattisgarh covers 135,192 square kilometers, a largely landlocked state sitting at the junction of central India and the Deccan Plateau. Its geography divides into 3 distinct zones. The Chhattisgarh Plains, the broad, flat, fertile basin of the upper Mahanadi river running through the center of the state, is the agricultural heartland. This is why Chhattisgarh is called the rice bowl of central India. Rice is grown on roughly 77% of the cultivated area. The plains are well watered, relatively densely populated, and host the major cities Raipur, the capital, Bilaspur, and Bhilai. The northern hills, the Maikal, and The Surguja Plateau in the north and northwest are forested, hilly, and tribal. The Mahanadi originates in these hills. The forests here shift from most deciduous to dry deciduous as you move higher. The Achanakmar Wildlife Sanctuary and Biosphere Reserve sits in this zone. And then the Bastar Plateau in the south. This is the great Chhattisgarhi Adar, a forested, rugged, socially complex region covering nearly a third of the state's area, drained by the Indravati River as it flows east to join the Godavari. Bastar is the heartland of tribal Chhattisgarh, dense forests, hill ranges, and communities that have lived in relationship with this jungle for centuries. It is also, as we will discuss, the most contested landscape in modern Chhattisgarh, where the Maoist insurgency known as Naxalism has waged a decades-long conflict with the Indian state. The forests of Chhattisgarh, 41% of the state's total area, are amongst the most significant in India. Sal, teak, bamboo, and mahua trees dominate. Mahua deserves special mention. Its flowers are edible, its oil from seeds is used in cooking, and it is fermented into a traditional liquor that is central to the social and ritual life of tribal communities. The forest is not background. For the Adivasi, people of Chhattisgarh, the forest is home, livelihood, pharmacy, and temple simultaneously. Chhattisgarh is entirely landlocked, surrounded by six states: Madhya Pradesh to the north and northwest, Uttar Pradesh to the north, Jharkhand to the northeast, Odisha to the east, Telangana to the south, and Maharashtra to the southwest. The state's central position makes it a transitional zone between the Hindi-speaking north, the tribal-speaking heartlands of central India, and the Deccan south. Each border carries cultural and ecological significance. The tribal communities of Bastar are closely related to the Gonds and Koyas of Telangana, the Konds of Odisha, and the tribal peoples of Jharkhand and Madhya Pradesh. These are not boundaries that the communities themselves recognize as definitive. Chhattisgarh's ancient name, Dakshina Kosala, appears in both the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. It is the birthland of Kausalya, Ram's mother. Rama himself is said to have spent significant time in the Dandakaranya forest of Bastar during his 14 years of exile. The Ramgarh hill in Surguja district contains the Sitabenga caves, among the earliest examples of theatre architecture in India, dated to the Mauryan period, 3rd century BCE, and the Jogimara caves nearby contain a Brahmi inscription believed to be world's oldest known love poem, and what may be the oldest surviving paintings in India. That is the depth of this land's cultural antiquity. Ashoka's influence reached here too. The Chinese traveler Xuanzang, visiting in the 7th century CE, recorded that Ashoka had erected Buddhist stupas at Sirpur, the ancient capital of Dakshina Kosala, on the banks of the Mahanadi. Sirpur was a major Buddhist center from 5th to the 9th centuries CE. Its brick temples and monasteries, now partially excavated, represent some of the finest early Buddhist architecture in central India. The Lakshmana temple at Sirpur, a brick structure from the 7th century CE, is one of the oldest brick temples in India and remarkable in its preservation. The medieval history of Chhattisgarh is dominated by the Kalachuri dynasty, specifically the Ratanpur branch, which ruled from around 1000 CE until 1741 CE, making it one of the longest running dynasties in Indian history. The Kalachuris were great builders. Their king Ratan Dev established the capital at Ratanpur, constructing the city's famous tank and temple complex. The Kalachuris were Shaiva devotees of Shiva, and their temples, inscriptions, and administrative system left a deep mark on Chhattisgarhi cultural identity. Their kingdom of 36 Gars is the source of the state's name. Bastar's medieval history is distinct. A dynasty claiming descent from the last Kakatiya king of Warangal established the Bastar kingdom in the 14th century, ruling from Jagdalpur. This kingdom, largely autonomous, deeply rooted in its tribal cultural milieu, persisted until the colonial era, and the rituals of the Bastar Dasera festival are directly connected to this royal tradition. The Chola emperors Rajendra Chola I and Kulotunga Chola I invaded the Bastar region in the 11th century, a reminder of how far the Tamil kingdom's reach extended into the Indian interior. After the Kalachuris, the Marathas took control of Chhattisgarh in 1741, followed by the British in 1854 when Nagpur was incorporated into British India. Under the British, Chhattisgarh was administered as a division of the central provinces, comprising the Chhattisgarh plains and the surrounding princely states and zamindari territories. The tribal communities of Chhattisgarh did not accept colonial rule passively. A series of significant uprisings punctuated the British era. The Paralkot Rebellion of 1825 in Bastar resisted Maratha and British taxation. The Maurya Rebellion of 1842 to 63, lasting nearly 2 decades, was a sustained Gond tribal uprising against colonial disruption of the forest economy. The Bhumkal Rebellion of 1910 in Bastar was one of the most significant. Bhumkal means earthquake in the Gondi language, and it shook the colonial administration with its scale and determination. These rebellions were not mere local disturbances. They were sophisticated resistance movements defending the right of Adivasi communities to their land, forests, and way of life. The same rights whose denial continues to fuel conflict in Chhattisgarh today. Veer Narayan Singh, a zamindar from the Sonapur area, is celebrated as Chhattisgarh's first martyr of 1857. During a severe famine in 1856, he broke into a merchant's warehouse and distributed grain to the starving poor. Arrested by the British, he escaped and joined the wider uprising of 1857. He was captured and publicly hanged at Jaistam Chowk in Raipur in December 1857. He is the symbol of Chhattisgarhi freedom struggle, and the International Cricket Stadium in Raipur bears his name. Post-independence, Chhattisgarh was a part of Madhya Pradesh. The statehood movement, driven by a sense that the region's identity, language, and resources were being neglected within the larger state, gathered momentum from the 1970s. On November 1, 2000, Chhattisgarh became the 26th state of India, simultaneously with Jharkhand and Uttarakhand. It inherited significant industrial infrastructure, particularly the Bhilai Steel Plant, but also the full complexity of the Maoist conflict, which had been simmering in Bastar for decades. The Naxalite conflict, the armed Maoist insurgency in the forests of southern Chhattisgarh, is the defining political challenge of the state's modern existence and deserves honest treatment. The Naxalite movement, which began in West Bengal in the late 1960s, found its deepest rooting in the forests of Bastar, where landlessness, displacement caused by mining and industrial projects, and the long historical marginalization of tribal communities created conditions in which an armed movement offering an alternative authority found genuine support. The conflict between Maoist guerrillas and Indian security forces has caused thousands of deaths over decades on all sides and has made large parts of southern Chhattisgarh some of the most contested territory in India. Development, mining, and forest rights remain at the heart of the dispute. The violence had reduced significantly in recent years as security operations have intensified. But the underlying questions about Adivasi rights, land acquisition, and equitable development remain unresolved, and they are not going away. Chhattisgarh has a population of approximately 30.5 million people as of 2026. The capital is Raipur, a rapidly growing city of about 1.5 million people, transformed in the last 2 decades by new infrastructure and commerce. The new planned township of Nava Raipur, built adjacent to the old city, is one of India's more ambitious greenfield capital developments. The economy rests on three pillars: agriculture, primarily rice, but also maize, pulses, and oil seeds, sustains the rural majority. Mining is the second pillar and the source of enormous national level significance. Chhattisgarh holds 15% of India's total iron ore reserves. Significant coal deposits, particularly in the Korba and Surguja districts. Tin ore, bauxite, limestone, and dolomite. It is one of the most mineral-rich states in the country, which is precisely why it has been the site of such intense contestation between mining interests, corporate investment, government policy, and Adivasi communities asserting their forest rights. Steel production, primarily centered on the historic Bhilai Steel Plant and private steel mills of Raipur and Raigad, is the third pillar. Bhilai produces over 7 million tons of steel annually and remains one of the largest integrated steel plants in Asia. Hindi and Chhattisgarhi, a related Eastern Hindi language, are the official languages. Kondi, Halbi, Kurukh, and other tribal languages are spoken by the Adivasi communities. Roughly 30% of the population is scheduled tribe, one of the highest proportions of any large Indian state. Guru Ghasidas, born 1756 in Giraudpuri, in what is now the Baloda Bazar district. He was a saint, social reformer, and spiritual leader who founded the Satnami movement, a devotional and egalitarian sect that rejected caste discrimination, idol worship, and the hierarchies of the Brahminical order. The Satnamis believe in the worship of a single formless God, Satnam, true name, and the essential equality of all human beings. Ghasidas taught through direct personal contact, walking village to village, drawing his following from the most marginalized Chhattisgarhi communities, particularly the Chamars, the leather working caste. His message of equality was radical for its time and remains deeply relevant today. Today, the Satnami community numbers several million in Chhattisgarh, and Guru Ghasidas is officially celebrated by the state. His birthplace at Kirautpuri is a major pilgrimage site. Tijanbai, born 1956 in Ganyari village in Bhilai, she is the greatest living exponent of Pandavani, the extraordinary solo performance art of Chhattisgarh, in which a single artist enacts the entire Mahabharata, embodying every character, switching between narration, dialogue, and musical performance with an ektara or tambura in hand. Pandavani is not merely storytelling at its best. In Tijanbai's hands, it is total theatre, the ancient epic made viscerally alive in a single body and voice. She began learning as a child by listening to her grandfather recite the Chhattisgarhi Mahabharata. She was married at 12. Her community, the Pardhi tribe, expelled her for singing Pandavani, an art traditionally restricted to men. She built herself a hut, continued performing, and built her career through sheer force of will. She has received the Padma Shri, Padma Bhushan, and Padma Vibhushan, the entire tier of India's civilian honors, as well as the Fukuoka Arts and Culture Prize from Japan. Watching a Tijanbai performance is to understand what performance can be when even boundary between artist and the art has dissolved. Habib Tanvir, born 1923 in Raipur, died 2009. One of the most important playwrights and theatre directors in the history of Indian theatre. He founded the Naya Theatre and created a body of work that brought Chhattisgarhi folk performance traditions, the Nach theatre form, the rhythms of Chhattisgarhi music, the physicality of tribal performers into dialogue with modern theatrical ideas from Brecht and beyond. His play, Charandas Chor, Charandas the Thief, a folktale about a thief who cannot lie, is one of the most performed Indian plays in history. Beloved for its wit, warmth, and underlying moral seriousness. Tanvir's great insight was that the folk performers of Chhattisgarh, the Nacha artists of the villages, were not raw material to be refined, but were themselves the masters of a sophisticated performance language that the urban theatre had forgotten. Anurag Basu, born 1974 in Bhilai, one of Bollywood's most beloved directors, known for films that combine emotional warmth with formal inventiveness. Barfi 2012, a nearly silent film about a deaf mute man and his two loves, was India's official submission for the Academy Awards. Ludo 2020, a multi-narrative dark comedy, was acclaimed for its structural ambition. Metro in Dino 2024 brought him his widest audience. He represents a generation of Chhattisgarhi talent that found its way to the national cultural mainstream. Veer Narayan Singh, already met in the history section, the first martyr of 1857 from this region, a man who broke open a merchant's grain store to feed the hungry and paid for it with his life. His act connects directly to a line of thought about the obligation of those with resources to those without, about resistance to authority in the name of ordinary people's survival that runs through Chhattisgarhi history from the tribal rebellions to the present. Chhattisgarhi food is the food of the forest and the paddy field, simple, honest, made from what the land provides, with a few distinctive preparations that mark it clearly as its own. Rice is the foundation of everything. Bhat, steamed rice, is the center of every meal, but the ways of using rice here go beyond the obvious. Rice is fermented into boria basi, leftover rice soaked overnight in water until it ferments slightly. A dish eaten cold at breakfast, especially by farmers and manual workers, which provides a naturally probiotic start to a working day. Rice is also made into chausela, a kind of rice bread, and puffed, flattened, and ground into various preparations. Amat, the signature dish of Bastar, and one of the most distinctive in all of Indian tribal cuisine. A thick, Sour soup made from mixed vegetables, bamboo shoots, and whatever seasonal greens the forest provides, flavored with a tamarind-like sourness and a tempering of dry red chilies and mustard. It resembles a sambar in some ways, but is wilder, more variable, deeply connected to the specific ingredients of a specific forest in a specific region. No two Ahmeds are the same. It is the taste of Bastar itself. Farra, steamed rice flavored dumplings made by filling a thin layer of rice dough with a spiced filling of chana dal or mixed vegetables, rolling them and steaming them whole. Light, soft, and satisfying, they are eaten as a snack or a light meal, often with a simple chutney of green chilies and coriander. Muthia, a preparation of rice flour shaped by hand. Muthi means fist, into small cylinders that are steamed and then either eaten directly with chutney or fried until golden. The name comes from the gesture of pressing the dough in the fist to shape it. Simple, tactile, and comforting. Chila, a savory pancake of rice flour or besan, made thin and crisp on a griddle, eaten with chutney. The Chhattisgarhi version, made from rice flour with a filling of spice dal, is a popular breakfast across the state. Mahua, both ingredient and beverage. The flowers of the mahua tree are dried and eaten directly as a sweet, slightly intoxicating snack, or cooked into sweets. The flowers are also fermented and distilled into mahua liquor, a traditional spirit that is the social and ritual drink of tribal communities across central India. Its production and consumption is embedded in the cultural life of the Adivasi communities in ways that colonial and post-independence alcohol regulation has repeatedly and often harmfully attempted to control. Dubki Kadi, a kadi unique to Chhattisgarh, lighter and thinner than the Punjabi or Rajasthani versions, made from buttermilk and besan with a tempering of garlic and cumin, into which small dumplings called dubkis are dropped and poached. It is served over rice and is a staple of the Chhattisgarhi Plains household. Let's look at the places you can visit here. Chitrakote Falls in the Bastar district, 50 kilometers from Jagdalpur. A horseshoe-shaped waterfall on the Indravati River, 29 meters high and up to 300 meters wide in peak monsoon, the widest waterfall in India and among the most dramatic in Asia. In the monsoon, it turns a deep churning red from the iron-rich soil it carries. In winter, the water runs clear turquoise. The forested gorge below catches the mist. It is genuinely spectacular and genuinely undervisited. Sirpur on the Mahanadi, about 80 kilometers from Raipur, the ancient capital of Dakshina Kosala, site of the Lakshmana temple, one of the finest 7th century brick temples in India. Its tall Shikhara tower rising from the flat river bank. The surrounding archaeological zone has yielded Buddhist monasteries, Hindu temples, and Jain shrines from the same area, a remarkable concentration of three religious traditions sharing one ancient city. The annual Sirpur festival brings classical music and dance performances to this extraordinary setting. Bastar Dasera, not a place but an event that deserves to be spoken of as a destination itself. The Bastar Dasehra is India's longest festival, running for 75 days from the monsoon month of Shravan to the post-monsoon month of Ashwin. It is centered on the goddess Danteshwari, the presiding deity of Bastar, whose temple in Dantewada is one of the 52 Shakti Pithas of India and involves a complex sequence of rituals drawn directly from the tribal traditions of the Gond and Muria communities. The royal family of Bastar, the Adivasi priests, and the goddess herself are all actors in a drama that has been performed for centuries. There is nothing else like it in India. Kangar Valley National Park, near Jagdalpur in Bastar, a compact but extraordinarily biodiverse park, famous above all for its limestone cave systems. The Kutumsar Caves and Kailash Cave, which are among the largest and most impressive in India, with formations of stalactites and stalagmites of remarkable variety. The park is also home to the Bastar Hill Myna, the state bird prized for its ability to mimic the human voice, and significant populations of wild gaur, leopard, and river species. Bhoramdev Temple in the Kavardha district of northern Chhattisgarh, a temple complex dedicated to Shiva, built in the Nagar architectural style between the 7th and 12th century CE, whose exterior walls are covered in intricate, erotic carvings comparable to those of Khajuraho. It is called the Khajuraho of Chhattisgarh, a description that both does it justice and slightly undersells its specific, quiet, forest-surrounded quality. It receives a fraction of Khajuraho's visitors and is all the more powerful for it. Bhilai Steel Plant, perhaps an unusual addition to a places to visit list, but the Bhilai Steel Plant has a particular place in Indian industrial and political history. Established in 1955 with Soviet technical collaboration, it was one of the three great steel plants of post-independence, India's planned industrial expansion. Alongside Rourkela and Durgapur, its establishment created an entirely new city, a cosmopolitan, multilingual community where workers from across India lived alongside Soviet engineers in a genuinely internationalist industrial experiment. The plant's township, its gardens, its sports facilities, its schools was designed with a care for workers' welfare that reflected the Nehruvian socialist vision at its most idealistic. To visit it is to visit a chapter of India's development story. Pandavani, already met in Tijan Bai's story, it is the defining performing art of Chhattisgarh, a solo artist embodying the entire Mahabharata over hours of performance, deploying voice, gesture, music, and improvisation to bring every character to life. It exists in two styles: the Vedamati style, where the artist sits and narrates, and the Kapalik style, where they move, dance, and enact physically. Tijan Bai's genius was to bring Kapalik to its apex. The art form is now internationally recognized and has been performed on stages across Europe, Japan, and the Americas. Panthi, the sacred dance of the Satnami community, performed at festivals celebrating Guru Ghasidas. It begins slowly with devotional singing and builds through increasing tempo and intensity until the dancers are spinning at extraordinary speed in a state of devotional ecstasy. The connection between Panthi and the Sufi whirling dervish tradition, or the Attan of Afghanistan, is the universal human experience of spinning oneself into the divine. Raut Nacha, the dance of the Yaduvanshi cowherd communities, performed in the weeks after Diwali. Male dancers in elaborate traditional dress, peacock feathers, mirrors, layered garments, move through villages in procession, singing, dancing, and reciting couplets called dohas. It is a celebration of the Krishna tradition, of community, and of the harvest. Bastar art. The tribal artisans of Bastar produce some of the finest traditional crafts in India. Dhokra, metal casting, the ancient lost wax process, produces bronze figures of animals, deities, and tribal life of extraordinary character. These are not refined, courtly objects. They are robust, energetic, slightly rough-edged, and completely alive. Bell metal craft, particularly from the Kondagaon area, creates resonant bowls and figurines. Godna, traditional tribal tattooing used by Gond and Muria women as a permanent form of adornment, has influenced contemporary artists. And Bastar weaving, particularly the bell metal and terracotta traditions, has been picked up by designers and sold internationally, though the communities who originate these arts have not always shared equitably in that commercial success. Chhattisgarh's most prominent sporting son is arguably the Shaheed Veer Narayan Singh International Cricket Stadium in Raipur, a modern 65,000 capacity venue that has hosted IPL matches and international fixtures since 2012, bringing world-class cricket to a state that had previously been on the cricket periphery. Chhattisgarh's cricket team competes in the Ranji Trophy and has produced several players who have made it to the national circuit. Traditional sports, wrestling, kushti, malkhamb, and tribal games of strength and agility remain popular in rural areas. Archery has deep roots in the tribal hunting traditions of Bastar and is both a practical skill and a ritual art in some communities. Most Indians, if asked to describe Chhattisgarh, will say Naxalites, steel, rice, all three are real, but none of them alone captures what this state is. The Bastar forest is one of the great natural landscapes of peninsular India. Its waterfalls, its biodiversity, its tribal culture, its extraordinary crafts. Sirpur is a world-class archaeological site. Tijanbai is one of the greatest performers in any Indian art form. The Bastar Dasera is India's most elaborate and oldest running festival. These things belong in the conversation alongside anything Rajasthan or Kerala has to offer. What Chhattisgarh most wants the world to know, to understand, is that it is not simply a resource colony, a state to be mined and whose people are to be managed. It is a civilization with deep roots, a living tribal culture of enormous sophistication and beauty, and a capacity for producing remarkable individuals. The question of how those resources are used, who benefits, and how the rights of the Adivasi communities are protected is the defining question of the state's future, and its answer will determine whether Chhattisgarh's remarkable natural and cultural inheritance survives for the generations who will inherit it. Chhattisgarh, the land of 36 forts, the rice ball of central India, the forest that holds the oldest paintings in India, the oldest love poem, and one of the longest running festivals on earth. The state where Tijanbai stood up, cast out by her community, married at 12, expelled for singing, and sang anyway, and in doing so, gave Pandavani to the world. The state where Guru Ghasidas walked village to village telling the lowest caste people of this land that they were equal to everyone else. A state born only in 2000 and already carrying a history thousands of years deep. Next Tuesday, we come to Goa. the smallest state in India by area, the one everyone has heard of, the one with the beaches and the churches, and the feni and the fish curry, but also a state with a history more layered and complex than the party destination image suggests. 450 years of Portuguese rule, a liberation that came 14 years after Indian independence, and a culture that is genuinely and irreducibly its own. That's next Tuesday at 7 pm. Please subscribe or follow wherever you're listening and leave a rating if you can. I'm Ray. We've been to Chhattisgarh. The forest holds the secrets and the people are still singing.